Hi, welcome or welcome back to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Maria Andrea, and today I have a book tag. It is still Tuesday. It is Tuesday. It's about 8:30 in the evening, and I wanted to take advantage of a Tag Tuesday. Haven't done one of these in a while. And the tag that I want to do today was not created to be a tag, but I am taking it as a tag. So this is Gareth from Books, Songs, and Other Magic. His video about the 6 types of love, inspired by February and Valentine's Day. I was sort of tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat in her response video to Gareth. And so I'm considering myself tagged and or responding to both Gareth and Pat about the 6 types of love. And in these prompts, which I have on my phone, they focus on a type of love, one of the 6 types of love. And then we are to share a book that reflects that type of love. So I, of course, like typical Maria Andrea, could not just choose one. So some of these prompts I have multiples. It's my indecision. So let's get to it. The first type of love is familial love. And I have a couple. So the first one that I have is a middle grade. And I have a few middle grade. But for the familial love, I have The Last Cuentista by Dona, Barba, Higuera. This book is a winner of the Newbery Medal. I don't remember the year that this won the Newbery, but pretty recently. This book was published in 2021. It's about a family, and it's kind of like a sci-fi speculative, bit dystopian. A family gets set into a kind of like an experiment in which their memories are wiped clean, and they are like certain information is downloaded into their brains. And the protagonist in this novel loves storytelling, and storytelling is such a big part of her family culture, and she is trying to maintain the stories, like trying to hold on to the stories, to her memories of family, so that she can continue to share the values and the love of family and the stories that she's grown up with. That's just my summary. This is what the flap says. Había una vez a girl named Petra Peña who wanted nothing more than to be a storyteller like her abuelita. But Petra's world is ending. Earth has been destroyed by a comet, and only a few hundred scientists and their children, among them Petra and her family, have been chosen to journey to a new planet. They are the ones who must carry on the human race. Hundreds of years later, Petra wakes to this new planet and the discovery that she is the only person who remembers Earth. A sinister collective has taken over the ship during its journey. Bent on erasing the sins of humanity's past, they have systemically purged the memories of all aboard or purged them altogether. Petra alone now carries the stories of our past, and with them any hope for the future. Can she make them live again? Newbery Medal winning author Dona Barba Higuera presents us with a brilliant journey through the stars to the very heart of what makes us human. And the heart of the novel is love of family, and Petra is just a very determined young lady who is just trying to hold on to her family, even if it's just through stories. So this is The Last Cuentista. It is a precious book. I really enjoyed it. And then the other book I have to mention, I have mentioned this book so many times on my channel, and this is kind of an all-time favorite series. I think y'all know what I'm going to say. If you've been watching my videos for some time, you know that I just can't help myself. I have to bring this up again. Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the series. I'm a fan of Mia P. Manansala's work. I'm a fan of this family. This is about a family, and Lila Macapagal is the main character. She's a protagonist, and she has such a love of family. And every book in this series, I think there's like 5 books to date. Every book in the series just has a it's like an ode to family and love of family. So if you love books about family, about love of family, about um, if you like cozies, a lot of family and sitting down and having meals together, and a lot of like feasting and food and family. That's like the series. So I love Arsenic and Adobo. I love the series, and I think when I think of a book about family and love of family, especially around food, this is my first thought. And this book I'm gonna mention twice. It's gonna come up again, but Simply Julia by Julia Turshen. This is a cookbook. It's one of my all-time favorite cookbooks, and Julia Turshen loves her family, and every bit of this cookbook is about her family. Let me see if it's tabbed because, okay, this is not a vegan cookbook. There's a section here that is vegan, and I promise you, just for those few recipes, this book is worth it. I love all the recipes I've tried, and some of these recipes you can veganize too, so I've enjoyed it. But I'm trying to show you, okay, the first page that I open up to is this. This book is dedicated to her wife. So this says, "My wife Grace, our dogs Hope and Winky, and me in 2020." So this is Julia, her wife, and their 2 dogs, and there are stories about her wife, about her mom, her family. Um, is There's just so much love of family, and you can tell that her cooking, like when she cooks, there's a lot of love. Like there's this family portrait right here, and these family pictures are scattered throughout. That's her Aunt Renee, Mom, me, and Aunt Debbie in 2000. Aunt Renee's gefilte bites, and I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, but yeah, every recipe has so much love of family, and she really goes back and writes recipes for her family's favorite meals. So it's really cool. I feel when I read this, I feel like I'm talking to a friend and I'm getting to know her and her family, and it's really a neat experience as a reader and as a home cook. Like I'm getting all of these like secret family recipes, and it's a lot of fun to feel that way with the cookbook. Prompt number 2, or the second type of love, is platonic love, friendship. So for this one, I also have a middle grade and a non-middle grade. So the middle grade is The Girl and the Ghost by Hanna Alkaf. This is one of my all-time favorite middle grade books. I absolutely love this story. And the heart of the story is friendship. Suraya is the main character, and I'll just read the flap. "I am a dark spirit," the ghost announced grandly. "I am your inheritance, your grandmother's legacy. I am yours to command." Suraya is delighted when her witch grandmother gives her a palisade. She names her ghostly companion Pink, and the two quickly become inseparable. But Suraya doesn't know that palisades have a dark side, and they are not above hurting others to ensure their master's happiness. Pink never knew what true friendship was until he met Suraya, But when Suraya starts making human friends, Pink feels the stink of betrayal and jealousy begins to overtake him. Soon Pink's shadows threaten to consume them both, and Suraya and Pink must find enough light to survive before they are lost to the darkness. So this is a friendship triangle between Suraya, her palisade, Pink, and her best human friend. And this book it's friendship that carries the story. So it's a really, really great friendship middle grade novel. It's also a really interesting and I love very nuanced mother-daughter relationship. These are like kind of like you get to see the generations from grandmother to mother to Suraya. And the mother-daughter relationships in here are pretty brilliant for a middle grade. They're deep, they're realistic, um, they're complicated, nuanced, and I think really effective. I think Alkaf did a really nice job portraying um, a complicated family novel. And the saving grace for the main character is friendship. And then another Platonic one that I recently read for a book club, for my in real life book club, is Meredith Alone by Claire Alexander. And this one is really, really neat. I really enjoyed this one. I read it in the month of January. If you love Eleanor Oliphant, is completely fine. This is reads very similarly to Eleanor Oliphant. So there's a really good platonic relationship in here. A woman is living alone in isolation. I was initially thinking she had agoraphobia, but she's a survivor of trauma. She has some mental health challenges she's working through, and she's isolating. And there's a mental health program in which they send a peer companion, a peer counselor to come and spend time with her, and you get to see a platonic relationship forming, getting to know one another, becoming friends, establishing a friendship, and then being there through tough times with someone. So if you just want a story that is kind of like an Eleanor Oliphant read alike, or if you haven't read Eleanor Oliphant, if you like a quirky main character and a story about friendship and how friends can help us through difficult times, I think that this might be a good one to try. This is Meredith Alone by Claire Alexander. Okay. Number 3, Romantic Love. I just picked the first one that I saw off my shelves, and this is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I don't own Persuasion. I really want to get a copy of Persuasion. Persuasion is my favorite. I think it's the most romantic. But Pride and Prejudice has a wonderful romance. And so I went ahead and wanted to show off this cover. I am trying to collect the annotated versions. I have this one and Sense and Sensibility. I just like all the annotations in here and the graphics and interesting facts, fun facts about the culture. Number 4, self-love, self-care. I have a few for this one. So, the first one I have is this one. I guess I haven't learned that yet. Discovering New Ways to Living When the Old Ways Stop Working by Shauna Niequist. I've heard a lot of people on BookTube talk about books by Shauna Niequist, and I really enjoy Shauna Niequist as a writer. And I follow her on different platforms and really like her thinking, and I really like her books. And this one feels like the most self-care to me because it's kind of stuck with me. I'm not done reading it. I've been working my way through it, but it talks about how sometimes as we grow older, as life changes, as things come at us, and we're facing new challenges, it's important to give grace to ourselves and say, you know what, I just haven't learned that yet. And give yourself the time and the space to learn and to settle into a new kind of routine or um, a new challenge. So for me, it's been recently with bringing a dog home and getting used to having a small dog, a young dog in our home. Um, what that means, and you know what, I just haven't learned that yet. I just haven't learned how to be a dog mom, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm doing the best, and I'm going to make mistakes. And I think that this is what Shauna is trying to just remind us, that we don't always have to be perfect, and we don't always have to know what to do, but we always have the ability to learn. So I really appreciate this, her honesty and her stories and her vulnerability in this book. And then I also have We Will Rest. So a few weeks ago, I went to Houston to hear a talk by Tricia Hersey. And Tricia Hersey is the author of Rest. Rest is Resistance. I've talked about Rest is Resistance before. Tricia Hersey is the founder of the Nut Ministry. And so she talks a lot about rest as a channel for liberation. And this is the second part of that. So this book is really beautiful. I don't know if you can tell, but it's just a really beautiful, almost pocket, slightly bigger than pocket sized. But it's a good night, bedside table kind of a book. It has beautiful inner end pages, or and it's designed in a way that is very artistic, intentional. The pages are just you can tell it's creative. There's a lot of artwork in them, and my favorite one is this. There's like a slow motion. You see somebody making their way to bed, and they're getting closer to the bed, and they're getting closer, and eventually it's kind of like a flip book. Like if you flip through it, you see a person kind of going through from one end of the room to their bed and getting into bed. I opened up to this page just randomly, and it says, How to Be an Escape Artist, an Incomplete List, Step 9. Step 9. Read a poem daily. You will need it for your dreaming mission and your escape maps. May I recommend Lucille Clifton, Nikki Giovanni, Langston Hughes, or Audre Lorde? Write around a prompt to start. My rest feels like. So it has a lot of these different ideas for rest, and I can't think of a better self-care tool than something that prompts you to, she calls it being an escape artist, escaping the grind, the day-to-day grind, to find moments to rest in your day. So I love it. I think it's important, and it's relevant. I also recently watched I have to mention this because I said relevant, recently watched some response videos, and one of them, I can't remember the name of the YouTuber, but on YouTube, a content creator on YouTube, talking about AOC posting on her social media platforms about knitting on her way, on her commute on the train, and talking about knitting as a form of resistance, and the history of knitting, and how women and men would knit, and knit messages like codes into their garments, and how knitting was a form of resistance, and it's also a form of rest. And it isn't doing nothing. It isn't anything that is like frivolous. It's something that it's symbolic, and it's a rest. It's a way of rest. And um, in that video, the content creator was talking about how people like AOC are probably aware of the symbolic nature of something like knitting and resting as a channel for liberation. And so, like, there's a purpose to the rest. There's a purpose to being an escape artist, or slowing down and doing something that takes time and intention. So, just side note. And then the other one for self care, I have this one here. I know I've mentioned it as well. Slow Noodles by Chanta Moon. The flap says, recipe: how to change cloth into diamond. Take a well-fed 9-year-old with a big family and a fancy education. Fold in 2 revolutions, 2 civil wars, and 1 wholesale extermination. Subtract a reliable source of food, life savings, and family members until all are gone. Shave down childhood dreams for approximately 2 decades until 1 subsistence remains. In Slow Noodles, Chanta Nyeon recounts her life as a Cambodian refugee who loses everything and everyone: her home, her family, her country, all but the remembered tastes and aromas of her mother's kitchen. She summons the quiet rhythms of 1960s Batamang, her provincial hometown before the dictator Pol Pot tore her country apart and killed more than 1 million Cambodians, many of them ethnic Vietnamese like Nguyen and her family. Then, as an immigrant in Saigon, Nguyen loses her mother, brothers, and sister, and eventually flees to refugee camp in Thailand. For 2 decades in exile, she survives by cooking in a brothel, serving drinks in a nightclub, making and selling street food, becoming a suture nurse, and weaving silk. Nguyen's irrepressible spirit and determination come through in this lyrical memoir that includes more than 20 family recipes such as sour chicken lime soup, green papaya, pickles, and pâté de foie, I can't say that French word, as well as Khmer curries, stir fries, and handmade Ankan noodles. Through it all, recreating the dishes from her childhood becomes an act of resistance, of reclaiming her place in the world, of upholding the values of Khmer Rouge sought to destroy, and of honoring the memory of a beloved mother, whose Slow Noodles approach to healing and cooking prioritized time and care over expediency. Slow Noodles is an inspiring testament to the power of food to keep alive a refugee's connection to her past and spark hope for a beautiful life. I think that this is a good reflection of self-care. I think that when we slow down and take the time to reconnect with our family history and the taste, the recipes of home and the people who are home, that we connect with something inside of ourselves. So one of the ways to practice self-care is to connect with ancestors, with family, with the past, with something that feeds your soul. And I mean, food and comfort food are big parts of like nurture. So for me, I feel like in this memoir, the author is practicing self-care in a way that is really meaningful. And I haven't yet read this book, but it's on my shelf and I really want to get to it. And I can't wait. I just, every time I read that description, I think of self-care and how when we cook. I know when I'm in my kitchen and I'm cooking, and especially when I'm cooking in memory of, like for Dia de los Muertos, that whole week where I spend cooking in memory of my my loved ones who passed, there's something really special that happens. There's like a magic that happens that food brings out in us, and I appreciate the author's work through slow cooking. 5, love for gas hospitality. So I had mentioned that I was going to talk about this one twice, and that's Simply Julia. Again, this cookbook is amazing, amazing. Like just everything about it. Serving people, hospitality, all of that is in there. I cannot say enough like praise for this book. Like definitely an all-time favorite, and for me, it's one of my like ultimate inspirations for hospitality, and in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming, or in a way that feels very practical. I'm going to just read this part here because I think I opened up to it and I think it might just kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse as to what I'm talking about. Throughout the cookbook, Julia Turshen has thoughts in which she just writes about something, and a reflection feels kind of like a memoir woven through the cookbook, the recipes. There's a picture of Julia Turshen with her mom, my mom and me in 1988, on the worthiness of our bodies. And having the privilege to write a book that's all about healthy comfort food, I think it's important to be honest about my feelings about my own body while suggesting all sorts of things you can cook to feed yours. It's important also to acknowledge that these feelings are evolving. For as long as I've always loved food, I've also been conflicted about consuming it. A few years ago, it really hit me how much time and energy I had spent feeling bad about myself, especially about my body. And that made me feel really sad. So I decided to start untangling the knot. I knew it wouldn't magically untie itself just because I wanted it to. I had to get some help. What did that look like? So many things. I tackled hard stuff in therapy. I changed who I follow on social media to learn more about people who had broken free from diet culture. I researched what diet culture actually is. I read books and listened to podcasts about intuitive eating and shame and vulnerability. And I started to speak more openly to my closest friends about their relationships to their bodies. I began to talk honestly with my mother about how much I absorbed from watching her not treat her own body with kindness. I'm trying to stop asking my wife to reassure me that my body is okay. I hid my scale in a closet, and then one day when I finally felt ready, I threw it away. I've had a handful of breakthrough feelings throughout this ongoing shift. One was after many gentle suggestions, Grace finally got me to watch The Matrix, and it's given me the most helpful framework to think about diet culture. Now, when I think about it, a culture that prioritizes thinness and urges us to keep comparing ourselves to each other so that we're left feeling really isolated, I simply think, oh, that's not actually real. Another major breakthrough was when I realized I had limited my range of feelings to just 2 options. It hit me one day like a splash of cold water in the face. I had only ever felt 2 things in my life, happy or fat. I remember feeling like a light switch had turned on in a dark room. Oh, that's what's been going on in here. For so long, whenever I felt fat, or what I deemed fat, it was almost always a way to describe anything other than happy. Not only had I equated quote unquote fat with anything other than happy, I had set up a tidy, miserable binary for all of my feelings to fit into. How did I get to this restricted emotional place? Through the same road so many people I know have also traveled. I inherited body image and weight issues. I internalized the bullying I experienced when I was younger, when I was told repeatedly that I was fat. It understood it to be an insult. What else? I unflinchingly accepted the idea that thin is ideal, and I put myself in close proximity with people who didn't challenge any of this. I listened to doctors tell me I was overweight, according to charts whose problematic origins I didn't ask about, and I didn't push for more information when they told me my blood work was great, but I should still lose some weight. I didn't ask them why. I put my head down. So how did I begin to dig my way out of this dark hole? I started to believe my wife when she said there was a version of my life that didn't revolve around feeling bad about my body. I started to change who I was talking to and looking at and listening to. I followed the money and started questioning all of the programs and people who were telling me my life could be so much better if only I did this thing I am selling you. I realized they stay healthy if I stay desperate. I dug into the things that made me feel all the things other than happy. I started to question how I measure happiness. I learned how many different and more loving barometers exist. I made an effort to stop using the word should. I watched the Fat Babe Pool Party episode of Shrill on television so many times, written by Samantha Irby, one of my favorite writers, and developed by Lindy West, and went from crying to smiling. I became an observer of myself. Bought an emotions poster. I bought an emotions poster, the kind you see in little kids' classrooms that lists tons of emotions and depict a child making a face that represents each. I made myself go look at the poster to figure out what I was actually feeling in the moment and which emotions they were tied to. It turns out the more I understood my range of feelings, they actually feel them, the more I get to know myself. I'm more imperfectly silly and complicated person than I ever knew. I screw up a lot. I bump into so many things all the time, literally and figuratively. I rewrote this essay at least a dozen times, and that's okay. Just like cooking, I work on feeling my feelings on a daily basis. Sometimes it's really challenging. Each time I willingly step outside of the framework I grew so accustomed to, I encounter things like pain, anger, sadness, embarrassment, and fear, all of those things that fall under anything other than happy. But I am also encountering more love, joy, and confidence and satisfaction than I ever knew was possible. I am learning what it feels like not to merely accept my body, but to understand that there's nothing wrong with it, to love it, to know that no matter how much space it takes up in the world, it's worthy, and I'm grateful to live in it. It should not feel revolutionary to say, especially in a cookbook that's about healthy cooking, that fat does not equal bad or unlovable, but it's worth saying there is nothing wrong with being fat. The only thing wrong is thinking that any person living in any type of body is less valuable than someone else. And that's the kind of heart that Julia brings in her cookbook in regards to hospitality. Like, you really see her vulnerability and her putting herself out there. And I think that that's what makes a wonderful hostess. And I feel like that's the best kind of hospitality, when you are inclusive, when you love yourself and love others, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable and open-minded and open about your own challenges and your fears and your emotions. And this is an emotionally deep cookbook, and she is a very talented cook, but also like a brilliant writer of feelings. And um, yeah, I think that if you come to this, you will feel very welcome, and you will enjoy your time. She's, in terms of hosting you in this cookbook, I think she's brilliant. And then the last one. I only picked one for this one. Unconditional Love, Divine Love, Altruism. I think my favorite book that is about altruism and love and divine love and unconditional love, and just the sweetest, is Charlotte's Web by Evie White. For me, this book is the best example of altruism, and perhaps even a metaphor to divine love. And this is a banned book, and I think I'm going to be rereading this in the month of March, for middle grade March. But if you've never read Charlotte's Web, please read it. Please read it. Check it off as a banned book. Check it off as a middle grade. Check it off as a book that is just so full of beautiful way to love. I could have also put this under friendship, but for me, it just feels divine, and it feels altruistic, and it feels like there's a deeper metaphor for it. So it feels like a very spiritual book. I recommend. So that's it. Those are my answers to the 6 types of love. Thank you, Gareth, for starting this conversation. Thank you, Pat, for pulling me into the conversation, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed thinking about all the different types of love and all the stories that I have read or am hoping and really excited to read that reflect some of these these notions of love. Thank you so much for watching. Hasta la próxima.